Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick overview of this thing here. This is the Volantex Ranger 600mm EPP trainer. Now this is the one that I've got in here. I actually got it from Banggood and it comes with a radio as well and batteries and even a little charger. So everything you need to get flying is actually in the kit. Now I will put that link below, but lots of shops do sell the Volantex stuff and I actually like the Volantex stuff, although I don't get a lot of it in here, but I might after this because this is pretty impressive. Now it's available as two versions right now. This one is the basic one that just has the stabilizer in it and the radio, but you can also get a version that has a little card that goes in the front. A little SD card can go into that, transmits the video over Wi-Fi, and you can watch that on your phone. I'm not a big fan of things like that because in my experience the video tends to be pretty poor and extremely laggy, so it's not really useful. But if you want to record it on your phone so you can watch it back of a bird's eye view of your flight, I suppose it's useful for that. A common question that I get on the channel is, what should I get when I'm learning to fly? And normally I would look at slightly bigger models, and the bigger Volantex Rangers are absolutely one of those things. Things like Skywalkers, things like Bixlers are great ideas. Having the motor and prop here at the back out of trouble and having a slightly higher wing means that these are great planes. They tend to be quite sturdy, naturally quite stable, and they don't tend to be too expensive either. For a trainer, I really like to see things that don't cost the earth, where the components are out of the way in a crash, that's easy to fly, that takes crashes well and is easy to repair, ones where the spares are cheap, and ideally a model that can grow with you as you get better and better, so you don't spend that money and within 3 or 4 months never touch it again. Now the features of this is made of EPP foam, which is a pretty typical foam for most of the planes you'll see on the channel, and it's very lightweight, and it is, despite its size, very stable, both with and without the gyro turned on. But don't worry, we'll get into the flying stuff in a moment. Motor is a little 10mm thing, and actually with the prop supplied, and there are spare props in the box, which I love to see in case you do accidentally lose one or something happens to it. You can get a reasonable amount of speed and it will float too. It's very easy to launch. It uses 2.4 gig communication protocol, and it has full 4-channel control. The ailerons in the wings, the elevator at the back, and also the vertical rudder are all connected to give you full control when you want to use them. And that means for the Mode 2 radio that this comes with, it's just using the right stick. Essentially, you just put the throttle 50%, and with the right stick you can fly around. And that, I think, for particularly a new pilot, is a perfect way to do it. It does have one key acrobatics function. If you are a new pilot and you don't know what you're doing, you can press that and it'll flip around. And it also has one key take-off function as well. You can just throw it. Comes with an X-Pilot stabilizer inside, nothing to set up, it's already wired and set up, and it has 3 modes, a beginner mode, an intermediate mode, and an expert mode where it's turned off. And that means that you can start at the beginner mode, and as you feel that you're getting more comfortable with it, turn off the support to eventually fly in full manual. As you can see, no assembly is needed, it comes ready to go. All you need to do is add batteries into the radio and charge the ones that comes with it. Batteries that are supplied with this, I've had a couple in my box. They are 400mAh 3.7 volt things. It advertises the flight time of 14 minutes. I think that's a little bit ambitious. I would say 8 minutes easily, 10 minutes typically. Takeoff weight is only about 50 grams and it's 600mm wingspan and 460mm in length. You can also bind it to a multi-protocol module. What you need to do is select the V761 protocol, and adjustment of the controls is super basic on this. To trim everything, you are just using some pliers to either compress or open Z-bends that are in the control linkages. So in terms of flying, well, this is actually really fun. Much more fun than I was expecting it to be. Now there are 3 modes supplied on the radio, as I've talked about. You have one which is the beginner mode or full support, partial support and expert. Now I'd recommend starting off in beginner mode on the radio, and the way you activate the throttle is you raise and lower the throttle on the radio, that unlocks it, and then raise the throttle to about 3/4 and just throw it and it will fly away from you. Onboard stabilizer is working very well. This is a particularly still very warm morning here in Cheshire, but it is handling itself fantastically well. And being black, it's actually very easy to see unless you get it against the foliage in a particularly bright day. Maybe the white one would be better for really warm climes. I know that some people don't like black foam because it can get very warm and a little bit elastic in very bright sunshine. With that stabilizer turned on, it inspires a huge amount of confidence and it flies like a much bigger model. It's tuned and set up incredibly well, but it's not a speed machine. It'll do about 15 mile an hour top whack estimated, but it will do a fast walking pace if you really crank down the throttle and you pull back on the elevator a little bit. Not really capable of any acrobatics. You can put it into expert mode, it'll do loops, but as usual with these kind of designs, they're not really good at acrobatics with the wing placement of the other pieces too. So, you know, your kind of lazy rolls, very lazy rolls, and basic loops are kind of all you're going to get out of it. And in my flying here, the packs are lasting about 10 minutes with combined flying. The other thing I'll mention here is it is very, very quiet. Once it's 6 feet away from you, you can't really hear the thing, and because of its size, it does look just like a toy plane in the air, which means for those who want to be able to practice in a park where other people are around, it isn't going to attract the same kind of attention as a larger, noisier model. There's lots of things that I like here. It's only 60 gram weight, which makes for easy flying and not a lot of crash if you do bump into stuff. There isn't enough weight and energy in a crash to damage the foam that it's made of. It's super easy and fun to fly. There's no setup required. Just go through the stuff I've shown you and you will be flying. And then you can gradually turn off the support as you get better. I like the fact it's an all-in-one package. You don't need to buy anything else with the exception of 4 AA batteries to go into the radio. The supplied charger just plugs into a USB port and seems to work fine. I like the fact it can be bound to an NPM radio, which means that if you want to move away from the very basic plasticky radio that it comes with, which is kind of what you expect in kits like this, onto something like a multi-protocol radio from someone like Radio Master, that's an option too if you still want to fly it when you move on. It does have a feature called one-click return that I haven't mentioned to now. What it's doing is trying to fly back in the direction that it flew when you clicked it. I think it's overly complicated, not very well implemented. I definitely wouldn't rely on it to get your plane back. I would just stand in an open place and fly it around yourself like I'm doing here. You'll have an awful lot of fun. Gyro modes are well set up though and work very nicely and will cope with a little bit of wind, but not too much. This is a very light model, and what you can't see in this footage is I've actually got quite a grin on my face flying this around. It's actually a lot of fun, more fun than I expected. But there are a number of things to be aware of that I draw your attention to. It isn't useful for anything but very calm weather. It's not going to handle wind even with that stabilizer. It gets small really quickly because of its size. Kind of obvious, but don't fly more than 50 meters away. You might lose orientation because this is really designed for line of sight flying rather than FPV. And that brings me nicely onto my next point. There is that Wi-Fi version that sends FPV footage, but I expect that to be super laggy and not as useful to FPV with, but it would allow you to record it. If you've got a very lightweight action camera, you might be able to stick it in front of where the motor is if you really wanted to do that. Don't forget, you need to keep the model still for 5 seconds after you connect the battery. If you move it, the gyro won't calibrate. You just need to plug it in and just leave it for a moment, let everything set up. I know a couple of my friends get caught out with planes with gyros in because they forget about that and the gyro doesn't calibrate cleanly. You do need to unlock the throttle. Don't forget, it goes high and low. That will unlock it and allow it to work. And the one key return is super basic. It's not a GPS return to home mode. It isn't going to save your bacon. So personally, I wouldn't use it. I would just get used to making sure that you don't fly too far away so you don't have too far to walk if you lose control and just put it into the grass. I would have liked to see an FPV canopy or upgrade option available for this for analog FPV. That would have allowed this to be a trainer not only for line of sight but potentially for fixed wing FPV as well. And the last thing is this should survive damage. If you need to fix it though, I would just get yourself something like a little bit of hot glue or something like Yoo-Hoo Pour. So in summary, this is a very nice ready to fly style model for those looking to try fixed wing in a calm confined area in a large sports hall, you're going to be able to fly this easily as well. The radio is very basic and plasticky, and I'd expect you to outgrow it within a couple of months. But the fact that it will bind to a multi-protocol module means that as you move on to more advanced professional style radios, you are going to still be able to fly this. Sad there isn't an analog FPV option. I think those would have made it a much more versatile trainer for lots of different pilots. And I guess what we've ended up here is something that's similar to those little glider conversions or Aldi gliders that you see on lots of channels every year. But this is a lovely way to introduce someone new into the hobby, or try fixed wing for yourself without breaking the bank. Just be prepared to do a lot of practice with line of sight and have to get your thinking cap on if you wanted to add real FPV. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 60 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.